want to get right into the discussion points of today and ask our distinguished guests, Barbara Gessler and Martin Dawson, on our virtual stage today. Barbara Gessler is the head of the Creative Europe Culture Program, and Martin Dawson, the deputy head of Creative Europe Media from both the European Commission. It is absolutely fantastic to have you both here with us today. Thank you so much for joining one of the first sessions of this festival. Barbara, if it's okay, I would start directly into a couple of questions. And the first one would be that the new program follows really a stronger interdisciplinary approach. Could you please give us also some insights into the policy backgrounds and the priorities of the new program?
Yes, first of all, also hello from my side. It's good to see friends around the table, and in particular with Katrin and Heidi. You know, without them, we wouldn't be talking about this today, because during the Austrian presidency, we made such enormous progress on discussing exactly, the objectives also of the program and the approach it should follow. So, we've been a real team around the table to build this program, of which I think we can be actually quite proud. Because, as you rightly say, it's really not only building on Creative Europe 2014-2020, but it actually goes beyond what I think we started in our new adventure in 2014. For the culture side, for example, there's the first time really a clear alignment of the funding priorities and the funding principles with the new European Agenda for Culture that was adopted in 2018, and that really set out the importance and the role of culture for all the areas of society and of our living together. This is a very strong new aspect, in particular for our culture part, but equally for both of us, and Martin will say more about that probably later for the media part. We have now in this new commission also very strongly expressed priorities that actually go beyond this funding program and actually go beyond all the funding programs. Priorities of the Commission, such as gender equality and the Green Deal. And this is something we'll talk about later when we talk a bit about the new European Bauhaus, are really cross-cutting issues that we are considering for all the policies now at European level, and also in particular for the funding that we are giving out. So everybody's basically forced to take these aspects into consideration, which I think is a very good thing, because mainstreaming then also means that we're all moving in the same direction. Of course, we have other political framework setting elements like the digital single market initiative that still continues. And of course, we also, and that is probably even more important now than it used to be, continue working with international cooperation and also working on specific new aspects that have evolved over the past years. So I think we can really be seen to tackle aspects as a cross-sectoral level, meaning also, of course, the kind of leveling impact that the COVID crisis has done, because it has really accelerated a lot of changes in the culture and creative sectors. I don't have to tell you, you know all of this, all the new challenges that have arisen, not only from COVID, but also the kind of reinforcing the necessity to change, to embrace digitization, for example. I mean, we're rightly placed at Ars Electronica to talk about this, but there's also market aspects, obviously, that we have to take into consideration if we want to look really at the transnational circulation of works, which is our core business, but also late developments that I just want to quickly say. Of course, elements that you will all follow in the press, issues of freedom of expression and the artistic freedom have been put on the European agenda. And last but not least, obviously, you know, mainstreaming in the area of climate change and biodiversity have become very, very important. So Creative Europe aims at contributing to all of those priorities without, however, and that's very important for me to say, without, however, changing the core business and the nature of the program.
And as you already mentioned, the program, of course, also consists of a media side. And Martin Dawson, who is in the round today, is representing this. The framework of the Media and Audiovisual Action Plan has a quite broad scope. Can you please, Martin, give us maybe a couple of insights also into the relevant components of the Media and Audiovisual Action Plan?
Yes, good morning. Delighted to participate in this important session. Well, as we know, the cultural and creative sectors have been amongst the hardest hit by the COVID crisis. And that includes, of course, the media and the audiovisual parts. As we know, cinemas in particular were closed during the lockdowns due to the health restrictions, and their revenues plummeted, and there has been really economic hardship across these sectors. And we do not forget that in Europe, the cultural and creative sectors are made up mainly of SMEs and have a high proportion of self-employed. And these categories were particularly exposed to such a sudden economic shock. And the Media and Audiovisual Action Plan tried to address this at European level by setting out actions, concrete actions to help these sectors recover in the short term, and more long term to transform themselves and to innovate, because as Barbara said, the COVID crisis revealed trends that were already present and accelerated these trends. So the philosophy of the Media Action Plan was not, let's go back to pre-COVID, let's go back to what things were like before, because we feel that the world will continue to change, is changing even faster, and inevitably these sectors need to therefore also change and try and be protagonists rather than follow. The philosophy is to try and lead the change in a European way, in line with European values and our own culture and our own history. So one of the initiatives that we have launched, for example, is a VR coalition, virtual reality coalition. This is an area where we believe Europe has all the ingredients to be a leader in this market that is still emerging. And we have the talent, we have the technology, we have the stories to tell, the culture, the heritage, from Pompeii to the Louvre, which provides a treasure of content for virtual reality experiences. But we have not yet fully exploited this new form of expression, which is also cross-sectoral by definition. It can be used to combine many different cultural forms of expression. And what do we mean by we have the technology? We have cutting-edge startups. We have cutting-edge companies, for example, in the animation world, that are already working with virtual reality. Many new experiments are being carried out here in Europe. We have the talent, both in front of the camera and behind the camera, to come up with some new experiences, some new products and businesses, because of course this also has to be turned into an activity. And this is the idea of the VR coalition, to bring together all these elements. And this will be launched soon. I mentioned startups. So again, this is the idea of combining our traditional film, TV sectors, which are recognized around the world because of the quality of the content, but to connect them with other companies outside of that sector who can bring new skills in terms of the internet, in terms of getting the content online, in terms of new mode of distribution, in terms of new mode of promotion, also in terms of new modes of production. Artificial intelligence was mentioned, the new frontier also for culture and creative sectors. What does that mean, artificial intelligence for the culture and creative sectors? That's a new horizon. And part of the Media Action Plan is to enable these connections to be made, enable these collaborations to be made. I think we need to promote them, to facilitate them, to encourage them. And the third thing I wanted to mention from the Media Action Plan, which is relevant, I think, to today's discussion, is the Creative Innovation Labs. These will be funded by Creative Europe under the cross-sectoral strand. And they were launched in 2021. The question is how to encourage cross-sectoral collaboration and on what kind of activities. So we feel that it's important to have a problem-solving approach to develop projects which are relevant, for example, for increasing the visibility of European content in today's crowded market, in reaching out to wider audiences, and in creating new business models. We feel these challenges are shared, whether it's in terms of literature, whether it's in terms of film, whether it's in terms of music and other cultural subjects. So the lab will finance projects which encompass audiovisual and other cultural and creative sectors, which address common challenges.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. You mentioned actually quite many times, of course, emerging technologies, innovation in general, also the Creative Innovation Lab. Barbara, innovation is in general a new objective in the new program, right? And maybe you could give us also a bit more of detail how innovation is really understood. Is it more a technological sense, or is it a broader way how it is understood?
Well, of course, there are different angles.
This was a question to me, I think, because I think innovation has always been discussed in particular in the culture sector, maybe even a bit critically and skeptically, Martin. It's not to interrupt you, but I think this question really is seen also as a result of you know, how do we actually define innovation, in particular in culture. And the easy answer is it's not at all innovation limited to technological development. We consider in the framework of Creative Europe, and in particular also in culture, that it can be of an artistic nature as well, and can be, for example, also a joint creation or production of an innovative European work, or the way to disseminate such a work to an innovative and kind of wider, broader, diverse audience. It can also encompass explicitly, you know, the development or the experimentation of a new practice or a new model, be it a business model or a model of working together, and then including also the way we transfer this and disseminate those practices to for example, to regions or sectors where these are less developed from those countries, or regions or sectors where there is already a large expertise and experience. So really for us, innovation explicitly this time includes also a kind of social and societal dimension, including in the area of audience engagement and audience development. You know, how do you reach people? It's become also very clear that innovation is also needed, and there's now an opportunity. This has been, again, you know, I think very visible during the COVID crisis. And I think also, as I said before, those cross-cutting priorities that are valid for the whole Commission need innovation in many ways. We need new ways of looking on how to tackle gender equality, or how to better include people with handicaps, or with disabilities, or people belonging to minorities or socially marginalized groups, and how do we include areas such as fight against climate change. So all of this is in the broad word of innovation. So yes, there is a technological aspect, and in much of what I said, there will be a technological aspect, but by no means a limitation to that.
And as you said, I mean, innovation also thrives from the cross-sectoral work, our today's topic discussion, and we see some quite interesting initiatives rising there, in particular also the new European Bauhaus initiative connecting culture, aesthetics, and also sustainability. Maybe you could tell us a bit more about this really high-level initiative.
Yes, I will also take the floor, but of course, Martin and the media program are equally concerned. But because as we said, this is an initiative that was launched by our Commission president only last year, and it's taken up a lot of speed in between. There was a lot of interest, and I think we heard that in the preparatory conversation that we had before we launched this event. A lot of stakeholders have said we are very interested in the new European Bauhaus because it is really, it's to make the Green Deal that we talked about earlier really a cultural and human-centered and positive, tangible experience. It's about, you know, exploring how we live better together, and how we do this also in harmony with our physical surroundings. So the new European Bauhaus is really about launching a movement to co-design and co-develop new ways of living together. And it's about places, it's about lifestyles that really will develop and improve the quality of how we live together, our social life. And there's three dimensions to the new European Bauhaus that will not, of course, surprise you. One of them is sustainability as a big aspect, but also the quality of the experience. And that is also a question regarding aesthetics. That is something that we talk about a lot in the arts, but that's not necessarily always a cross-cutting issue. And then, of course, as we said before, inclusion as a priority for the Commission today is also something that we think is incorporated in this new European Bauhaus initiative, which really aims at connecting different realities and really adopt a holistic view and work together across disciplines. You know, for the longest time, everybody's been working in silos, and I think if there's one societal challenge that we see around the table is really that we need to work together in taking into consideration the different aspects of a problem if we want to solve it. And the Commission believes that that the Bauhaus was such a movement. The historical Bauhaus more than 100 years ago was a movement that did that, and we try to reactivate this way of thinking. And in concrete terms, for us, this will mean, you know, reaching out to artists, to activists, to designers, architects, students, scientists, engineers, practitioners, policy makers, and really bring them together under this umbrella to exchange knowledge and ideas and really create something interdisciplinary, because we need new ideas, and this initiative will be delivered in various phases. There was a quite encompassing consultation phase, and we're now in the design phase of how we will concretely deliver on this as of the second semester of this year. There will be also support mechanisms under the Creative Europe program in a limited way, because we believe that the culture and creative sector already has a lot on offer. So implicitly, a lot of what the culture and creative sector is doing is a contribution per se to the new European Bauhaus. But the initiative itself will launch five pilot projects that are really independent and strong. So there's a separate funding pot for that, and we don't really need to go into Creative Europe funding, even though we believe that we have a lot to contribute, and we will see how we can also mainstream this in the new program.
I think we could maybe use the second part of this session already also on WanderMe, the networking session afterwards, to discuss maybe some first ideas also in which direction we could also participate in these Lighthouse projects and spike first ideas on this. One last and brief question to both of you would be, is there anything in particular also as an outlook of the work program 2022 which was not mentioned yet and is most relevant also to be discussed today?
Martin?
Yes, well, under the work program 22, we will continue to support the Creative Innovation Lab that we have launched in 2021. And already in 21, I think we should say that we have we started already to reach out and take the first steps to incorporate also this new European Bauhaus initiative, because it, as Barbara says, is very much in this line of thinking of a cross-sectoral approach, common challenges, including, of course, the Green New Deal. The culture and creative sectors are integral part of our society, of our economy, and therefore also of this effort of greening. And that will be continued, and we're discussing with Barbara also how to deepen that for the work program 22. And for the audiovisual side, I could give you a lot of information, but I don't think that's particularly the subject today. But we will continue to support innovation through tools and through business models with a digital element to that. And of course, to the extent that that is relevant, we will always share with other cultural and creative sectors.
Yes, maybe from my side, just to complement, because Martin really said it all. As a general framework, also let me say that the budget for Creative Europe this and next year, so therefore also in 2022 will really be the most solid one, because it is our aim, and it was also the budgetary authorities' decision, meaning the member states around the table and the European Parliament, to really front load the Creative Europe budget to the first years, because we believe there's a strong contribution to make to the recovery and resilience building of the sector. So that is something that I would like you around the table also to be aware of, that there's now also, of course, a scope for bold ideas maybe, and and courageous initiatives, because these will be the years where we will be able to embark on such adventures in culture. For example, we will also stabilize the Opportunist, the individual mobility scheme that we have started only 2 years ago. Will of course now be part of the new program. We will continue with our sectorial approaches. So all of these things will continue, but there will be a few elements also that we would like to endorse that have maybe started as pilot actions and pilot projects in the past. So more of the good thing that we started in 21, with maybe a few innovative adds-on.
I'm sure that the round has many bold ideas, but there is one question, last question to, I think, Martin from Heidi Meisnitzer. What kind of tools and business models maybe could be provided as concrete examples?
Tools, for example, to facilitate access to markets, online tools that can help professionals prepare their participation in these big international markets in order to make the most of them. So matchmaking tools where people can provide information about their projects and about their companies and about the partners they're looking for. So tools for business, business models based more on data sharing, data collection, data analysis. As regards the world of cinema, of course, there are experiments ongoing about partnerships between cinemas and video on demand services, and combining theatrical releases with online releases in innovative ways to reach out to wider audiences. These are some of the very interesting projects that we receive to these calls.
Thanks a lot, and I'm sure we will actually get some insights also in the how-tos and the schemes for funding and how we can actually address this with concrete proposals, and definitely also ideas and projects in the next part from Elisabeth Pacher and Esther Kraus from the Creative Europe desk in Austria. Before doing so, I would suggest that we give it another try and play these wonderful videos we have prepared for you on the Creative Europe desks. Please. I would hand over the stage now to Elisabeth and Isla.
Hello to everybody on behalf of Creative Europe Desk Austria, and many thanks to our desk colleagues who jointly designed this event with us. We focus on interdisciplinary and cross-sectoral cooperation, and Esther and me will pick out these aspects in our presentation. Maybe you can share with us the presentation. Here you see the overview on the Creative Europe program, and I will talk about the European cooperation projects, and Esther will present the Creative Innovation Lab, innovative tools and audience development and film education. Well, the European cooperation projects are the most important funding line of the culture program. They involve a large diversity of players active in the cultural and creative sectors, carrying out a broad spectrum of activities and initiatives like development, creation, production, dissemination, and preservation. And projects are designed to contribute to the implementation of emerging EU initiatives. And this is why policy background is important, and it's important to link up with the priorities and the cross-cutting issues. There are some themes and priorities given, like audience, social inclusion, sustainability, new technologies, and the international dimension. And a consortium has to consist of at least 3 legal entities from 3 countries participating in the program and active in the cultural and creative sectors, including the audiovisual. Audiovisual operators can participate, so these projects can be interdisciplinary as well, but they cannot be exclusively audiovisual. And the project has to follow the objectives of the culture strand. And there is another new aspect. Projects were opened to organizations active in the cultural and creative sectors, which does not mean that they have to be cultural organizations, but they can also come from other sectors like the environment or social organizations. And there are three formats, the small, the medium, and the large scale projects. And you need at least 3 partners for a grant of 200,000 euro, 5 partners for a maximum of 1 million, and 10 partners for a large scale cooperation of 10 partners from 10 countries, asking for a grant of 2 million. And the duration is always up to 48 months. The deadline of the first call for projects was yesterday, and we expect another call in the end of this year with a deadline in the first quarter of next year, but this is still to be confirmed together with the work program 2022. And another funding line are the European platforms focusing on the circulation of artists and creatives. Platforms support emerging artists, focus on their promotion and the visibility, and audience development and the branding strategy are very important. Platforms involve a coordinator and at least 11 members from 12 countries. And there are platforms in different sectors and different disciplines. The European Media Art Platform is the platform for media arts. I think the representatives are here with us today. Hello. And another important funding line are the European networks. The European networks are membership organizations, and they represent joint interests. They offer services to their members, advocacy for their field. And you will hear more about a network, the EMZ, the International Music and Media Center, in the next contribution. But now Esther will give you more details about the Creative Innovation Labs. Thank you.
Thank you, Elisabeth. Hello to everyone. A warm welcome from my side. My name is Esther Kraus. I run the Creative Europe Media Desk in Austria, together with my colleague Clara Schreiner, who is also among us in the audience. So I'm very happy to give you some small insight into the cross-sectoral collaborative aspects of the program, and I will focus on those that are still upcoming. As you know, cooperation is very important in all the Creative Europe program. All projects have to have a European dimensions. You need partners from other Creative Europe member countries to make your application and to make sure the project has a great European added value, as we like to call it. So the Creative Innovation Lab is in the cross-sectoral strand, as you saw in the beginning, and it's dedicated to incentivize the creative sectors to design and test innovative digital solutions with potential long-term effects. The deadline is the 5th of October. The budget foreseen for this call is 6.3 million, and the duration of the project contract is 24 months. Applications can be made by 3 partners coming from at least 2 different countries, which have to be member of the Creative Europe program. And expertise from all the creative sectors among the partners is very welcome, including especially the film industry and the audiovisual sector. The tools developed shall be applicable to the AV sector and at least one other creative sector. And the activities shall contain a high potential of replicability. The scheme is aimed at supporting the competitiveness, the cooperation, circulation, visibility, availability, diversity, and increased audience across all sectors. In particular, as examples, we can mention projects that focus on rights management and monetization, including transparency and fair remuneration for the creatives, data collection and data analysis, with an emphasis on predictions for content creation and audience development, maybe including AI. That's a kind of project that I've seen already. And for the first year, which is the 2021, 2 themes are especially important, which are the greening of the value chain across the creative and cultural sectors, including actions that contribute to the European Bauhaus project that we've heard about. And the second important focus is on innovative educational tools that use creativity to tackle societal issues such as misinformation or fake news, for example. The audience development and film education call is in the media program in the cluster audience. And it provides funding for initiatives that promote audience development, audience engagement, including film education activities, which should address in particular young audiences. The call is open. The deadline is on the 5th of October. The budget for this call is, there are 5 million euros reserved for this call, and the project duration can range from 24 to 36 months. The co-financing rate by the media program is 70% of your total eligible project budget. The focus is on projects that ensure pan-European cooperation and provide innovation, especially by using digital tools. Projects that are submitted shall stimulate interest of audiences in European films and in other European audiovisual works, including specific programs for film heritage. This is one of the focuses these days. Then it's important that the projects strengthen the pan-European cooperation for innovative audience development and film education projects. Again, digital tools are mentioned here as important. Also, the call is addressed to increasing the European, but also over the European area, the audience outreach. So the further, the better. And film education projects shall be developed across European and also non-European territories. Here we are at the outreach again. There is also the funding scheme called Innovation Tools and Business Models, which is to be found in the media cluster business. The deadline for this call has already passed. It was on the 24th of August. We are expecting the publication of the next call by end of this year. And it's a funding scheme to increase the visibility and circulation of European films in the digital age. So I will not go further into the details of guidelines or how to make an application, as there is a lot of content online available to help and support to get more information about the calls and the specific guidelines and the important steps in an application. We have a new submission portal that we are using from this year on to make submissions. So you can. I put down where you can find more information. The first link is on the website of the European Commission. And you can find a series of online info sessions there, and the PowerPoint presentations that were used at those info sessions on each of the calls in the Creative Europe Media and in the cross-sectoral strand of the Creative Europe program. The FTOP is the new submission portal. All the calls are published there. All the guidelines are to be found there, and it is also the entry point to submit your proposal. And if you're interested in making an application, or if you want to know if or where your project idea could fit, please turn to your local Creative Europe desk. Each member country of the Creative Europe program has a desk, and we give information on how to access the funding opportunities. We support and we give advice in the application process. We organize info days, seminars and workshops, and we all have informative websites and newsletters with all the important events taking place. In particular, I would like to drive your attention to the initiative Cooperate, which is a joint initiative of Creative Europe desks of more than 16 countries, and it's dedicated to partner search. As we have heard, it is very important to have a broad European approach. And for many of the applications for funding, you need to have partners from other countries to make the application eligible. So a series of online events was started and launched, with pitching sessions, with information on the calls, and with presentations of projects and project leaders who are looking for projects. Also, more information on that you can find on the websites of the Creative Europe desks, or you just send them an email or give them a call. Thank you very much for your attention. Now I'm looking forward to the presentations of the best practices, which will show how these sometimes a bit abstract sounding objectives are translated into real concrete projects. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Esther. Thanks for this really fantastic insight into how we can all do this. And I've seen in the chat that there are already some ideas or partners and organizations who do already jump into the specifics and how they can actually write the proposal. Maybe you could address them directly in the chat so we can continue with our session for today, because as you say, we have prepared really outstanding projects, and I think for all of us it is absolutely helpful and a huge inspiration to get to know a couple of projects which could be also some best practices or just inspiration projects for all of us, how and what we could do ourselves in the future. I will jump directly into the first project, into the field of cinema actually, and the fantastic project Cinovate, which centers cinemas as innovation hubs for local communities. Philipp Hoffmann, founder and managing director of Rushlight Media, is an expert in the world of film sales and digital distribution, with really a vast international national network in the field of media and digital markets. Philipp, the stage is yours.
All right, thank you very much, Veronica, for the introduction, and thank you for the opportunity to present Cinovate here, which is great. So hello, everybody. I will share my screen real quick. It worked in the rehearsal, so I hope it works now again. Can you see it?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So as Veronica just said, Cinovate is actually addressing to cross the gap between the cinemas and the digital world, to speak, to say it very general. We have been supported, or we actually are supported within the preparatory action, which was where there was a call late last year. We got the funding, and we have a group of a lot of partners gathered for this project. Just to name a few here, it's Folkets Hus och Parka and Folkets Bio, two cinema corporations from Sweden, the Slovenian Art House Association, Access Cinema from Ireland. So we have, in fact, we have partners from a lot of European countries. On the content side, we have a partner called Spielfabrik. I saw that Thierry Beaujean is also among the participants and will present something else later on. There's the ECA, the Event Cinema Association from UK, and the IMZ from Vienna. And I saw that Claudia Krutzig and Katharina Jeschke are among the participants today as well. So again, we have gathered a lot of partners, very strong partners from a lot of European territories. What do we actually want to do? We see the cinema or the cinemas we work with in the center of this action, and we want to test and launch various content strands to see how those content strands can actually strengthen the position of cinemas as local cultural hub in their local communities. I think it's not necessary to say what happened over the past 1.5 years and how much that jeopardized and put pressure on the cinemas, particularly smaller ones, the independent ones. And again, we want to see how we can maybe gap that bridge between the actual cinema as a local physical cultural hub and various digital content strands. To name those content strands, we have a cinema-powered video on demand, which is something we already execute under a different project in Germany, which I'll come to a little later. We want to test event cinema, or so-called alternative content online, which could be concerts, operas, theater plays, whatever. We want to dive into the world of online film education. Also want to test crowdsourced private screening, meaning a crowd of people is expressing a wish and deciding what is screened at the actual cinema. Virtual realities, and last but not least, we want to dive into gaming and esports. I think everybody knows that's quite a dynamic, very successful sector, and of course it makes sense. It's partly already executed in other projects, but we want to see how we can connect that with cinemas to strengthen the ties to particularly younger audience, which I think is an issue in many countries, particularly when it comes to art house cinemas. As I said, we actually want to bridge the gap, and to say more, want to close the circle between those digital worlds and the cinemas. So what will apply in at least a few cases is a so-called voucher scheme. We do that in Germany with our project called Kino on Demand already, that for the home viewing of films, meaning the streaming of films as VOD at home, our clients of Kino on Demand get actual vouchers which they can redeem at their local cinema. Meaning with this voucher incentive for users or viewers in that case to return to the cinemas, we want to actually close the circle and have not a one-way street from the cinema to the digital world, but also the other way around, from the digital world to the cinema. So maybe a person, a viewer who uses one of those program strands only digitally gets an actual incentive to return to the local cinema. So for us, it's really, even though I might repeat myself here, it's really about bridging the gap between the digital and the physical world, which we believe it did not happen yet with other projects. Of course, we'll apply a lot of analytics and data analytics to that. We work with various companies who are specialized on that, because in the end, I think that's one of the strengths of the digital market, that you get a very good insight on the analytics and data sides. Of course, it's all GDPR compliant and everything, but of course, we want to give an access to cinema operators to the world of analytics, which can be a bit difficult when you talk only about a single cinema, a single place, but on a broader scale, when many cinemas are connected through that project, particularly across different countries, the data inside can be very interesting again. Last but not least, as I mentioned, it's based on Kino on Demand, which we run since many years in Germany, actually since 2015. So we are not a COVID or Corona child. We do this quite a bit longer already. And what I have here is just an example of screenshots, because we'll provide access and dashboards for the cinemas to the system, where they can always see what's going on in their particular shop and in their particular environment, just to make sure that the whole transparency is delivered, and this is not a one-way street, but that the exhibitors can actually participate. So that's it from my side. It was a very quick run through, and I'm happy to answer many questions or remarks later on in the breakout rooms then. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Yes, we will have time also in the breakout rooms to go much more into detail in this project and the other projects. This brings me already to digital crossover, which is actually a project which places much more the focus on a quite holistic understanding also of the needs, the challenges, and of course the aims of cross-sectoral work in all different kinds of sectors in creative and cultural industries. With us here today is Thierry Beauchard. He is a consultant for IMZ and the CEO of European Investment Network Media Deals, focusing on the creative industries. After many years in the field of film finance in the UK, USA, and Berlin, he has been actually helping investors better understanding opportunities in vertical segments like audiovisual, music tech, video games, and fashion tech. And besides all that, I've really enjoyed actually working together in the digital crossover project during the last 2 years. So Thierry, please, it's your stage, and looking forward to hear about digital crossover.
Thank you very much, Veronica. It was a pleasure as well, and thank you to everyone to be there. Are you sharing my presentation as we discussed? Yes. Thank you. So yes, very happy to be here today and to represent IMZ to talk about the project. Just waiting maybe for. I don't see it. It's okay.
1 second. Yes.
Yes, I think it's coming. Okay. So yes, talking about IMZ, so International Media and Music Center in Vienna. Yeah, next slide, please. Yes. Yeah, thank you. Okay, so yes, IMZ is an international business network dedicated to the promotion of performing arts and culture through audiovisual media. And as you can see, it's I think it's the oldest association of this kind in Europe, with more than 450 members that are part of film production, distribution, broadcasting, festival, covering all the value chain of well, the media development. Next slide, please. These are some numbers about IMZ, so you can have a look at the size and the size of the association, which is very big and based in Vienna, in Austria. Next slide, please. Sorry, it's very quick. 4 main areas of activities: market access. So with a big market in Berlin, Avant-Première, it's called, in February during the Berlinale. A lot about audience development, about professionalization as well of the different members and the sector, and finally about innovation, and that's what we're going to focus on today with this project Digital Crossover. So next slide, please. Yes, so that's the project. Next slide. That we started in January 2020, basically, and that we actually stopped. It finished end of June this year. So it's a project that is actually finished now. These are the different consortium partners. IMZ, Ars Electronica, that you know, it's our host today. We have also Börsenverein Gruppe, which is the book fair in Frankfurt, basically on the publishing side. Centrica from Italy, which is a company specialized in virtual reality. And on the other side of the spectrum is Neo, which is a French company, which is the leading comic streaming platform in Europe. So as you can see, it's different types of sectors, and that was exactly what DCO was about, is really to get these different sectors to talk together and understand how they can work together and how they can develop some potential business model, new technologies to improve the cross-sectoral approach. Okay, next slide, thank you. So what we did is we did mainly two main points. First, we did different workshops, and then I will go at the end about a survey we did. But first, it was very important that we started with different workshops, bringing people from different sectors to discuss different subjects. So you see, we did Ars Electronica last year, basically, at Arts Plus during the book fair. And then, well, I would say people were so enthusiastic about these workshops that we did two more workshops, especially on the distribution platforms in Europe. So at the end, we had 4 workshops plus the final presentation in June. So now I'm going to go very quickly, if you go to the next slide, quickly to the results of this workshop, that are basically needs that came out from this workshop from the different players from the different sectors, because basically they understand that when talking to each other, they need to know more about different topics and how to work more together. So of course, a lot about technology, the need to have a European data space for culture, to create scalability through blockchain. We had some examples of projects, how they can create scalability in culture through this technology, and how can we bring more access to technology for cultural companies. Second topic, what was very important, and one of the key points of DCO was metadata. So I think there were a lot of questions about how can we create capacity building program to understand better metadata for the creative sectors, because many companies didn't really understand how to use it, how to develop the metadata and to make it useful for after. The specific problem of having no cross-sectoral standard at the moment. So if you go into film, or if you go into music, or in other sector publishing, they all have different standards, which prevents obviously cross-sectoral discussion. The consequence of metadata is really about the question of visibility on platforms and the recommendation models, because today, a lot of content is available on digital platform, and the question is, how do you get visible when there are millions of content? So of course, this is done through the metadata. And then the value of data. That was also a very important point. How do we value the data that we've got on B2B and also on B2C? Next slide, please. So the last 2 other points that was discussed in terms of need is, the first one was about the ecosystem. And there were many questions about how can we map the cultural platform existing in Europe. There are many things happening, and it seems difficult for people from one sector to understand what is available or what is there in the other sector. Also, mapping of incubator and accelerators. There are a few in different countries, and people have difficulties as well to identify them, to know where they are, what they do, what's their vision. So a mapping would be important. And obviously to develop more this support to incubator accelerator in culture, to develop really this expertise in the different cultural sector. And of course, finance was a very important point, and we discussed many points. This question of, do we need company funding or project financing? How does it work together? How do we put public and private finance to work together, maybe in a better way in the future? Capacity building for financing strategy, because we saw many companies from different sectors having difficulties to develop their own financing strategy, not understanding exactly what is the best adequate financing strategy for them. The question of cross-sectoral funding. Today, funding is very much in silo, and there's not much cross-sectoral funding. We did also a panel discussion about that at the Artec forum last year. And of course, what could be the new business model that could be the consequence of cross-sectoral approach? Again, today, most of the business model, the licensing model in digital, for example, are based on silo sector and not on cross-sectoral part. And then discussion about the impact and also the position or the situation of philanthropy funding compared to the other type of funding that we've got. Okay, thank you. Next slide. Just to say, we did also a quantitative survey, a big questionnaire where we had more than 250 people respondent from 20 countries and from 12 different creative sectors, where we asked quite a lot of questions, but I will just give you some feedback on 2 questions, otherwise it's going to be too long. So next slide, Veronica, thank you. So the first question one of the first questions we showed was to prioritize the challenges that prevent collaboration with other creative sector. It was very interesting that the main problem was to finding business partner, which means that in fact, it's really an issue that people don't know other companies in other sectors, and they need to find space events like Ars Electronica, for example, to be able to understand and identify other business partners. Of course, finding financing and increasing visibility were also very important in preventing this collaboration. Next slide, please. And what could cross-sector collaboration bring to your business activities? That was also an important question for us to understand what was the motivation basically behind it. And the first one was really to find more customers and to diversify the business activities. And very quickly after, you see more revenues, access to innovative content, etc. So there were a lot of interest basically to get to know the other sectors and to see how they can work together. So yeah, that's about it for today for me. So yes, thank you very much to everybody.
Thank you, Thierry. Thanks for the introduction. Maybe this can be also seen as the ground for any further ideas and projects we are all developing in this group today. A project which actually brought cross-sectoral collaboration to life is one coming from the field of cultural heritage. It's called Parallel Traces. The project is actually a small-scale collaboration project, and it aims to rediscover traces of Jewish cultural heritage in urban architecture as an integral part of European history. It's actually my pleasure to have Victor Sorensen with us today. He's the Executive Director of the European Association for the Preservation and Promotion of Jewish Cultural Heritage. He has studied political science at the Autonomous University of Barcelona, and he's the director of the Comunidad Israelita de Barcelona and founder of the Jewish cultural platform Mosaica. Thank you so much for being with us today, and the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Veronica. Good morning from Barcelona. First of all, I would like to thank you for this invitation, and a special thanks to Marc Retel from the Creative Europe office in Luxembourg for all the support he has given us for this initiative. It is, and it was a pleasure to work with him. The project Parallel Traces, a new lens on Jewish heritage, had as main objective to reinterpret the Jewish heritage of 5 European cities in an original and innovative way through audiovisual and artistic exploration, taking as a premise the consideration of heritage traces as a kind of laboratory to reinterpret traditions, customs, as well as the significance of these sites in our days as a means to encourage artistic activities and projects that explores the link between heritage and contemporary culture. In this open manner, 8 European organizations have joined forces to carry out this initiative. This consortium work on the development of different mechanisms to create a framework for participation and artistic exploration connecting the Jewish heritage of the 5 cities with audiovisual art. including a call for artists, offline and online communication activities, and the development of the Parallel Traces app, which allow the general public to learn about the Jewish heritage of these cities, reinforcing the digital approach to our common heritage. This mechanism laid the groundwork for the first major public activity of the project, the Pan-European contest, open to creative people throughout Europe, inviting citizens to create original digital photographic and audiovisual artwork on the Jewish traces of the participating cities. These works of the contest winners, plus the artwork of some guest artists, form the content for the production of the traveling exhibition Parallel Traces. In the second phase of the project, over the course of a year and a half, each of the cities organized and implemented the Parallel Traces exhibitions for a month. And this exhibition combined audiovisual work of all types, photography, video, and audio. It also combined long-established artists as well as young and amateur ones. The results of the exhibition offer a plural variety of interpretations, from poetic to historical views, from the past to contemporary perspective, social and personal glances. And this is the lens that the project was looking for. In parallel, an artist mobility plan was carried out. So in each exhibition, in addition to the local artists, other artists traveled and participated in the openings and activities, creating a very interesting dialogue about their work experience with the project. The Parallel Traces project sought to create a unique bridge between two sectors, digital art and heritage. And for that, we try to treat heritage traces not as static elements, but as living and dynamic in permanent evolution, applying innovative practices in terms of contemporary and creativity practice. The consortium has made a remarkable effort to engage key stakeholders, institutions and networks working in the area of heritage and digital art in an open and plural way, so they can participate together, interact and nurture each other, ensuring not only the implementation of the project activities, but also the promotion, the rediscovery, and the evolution of the Jewish cultural heritage by a large amount of people and actors. One of the main tools was this Parallel Traces app that has been developed as part of the strategy for the promotion of this heritage. The app also served to develop new audiences and facilitate the transmission of content, including the activities and initiatives of the project. To this end, the technological partner that was part of the consortium developed this multilingual app, which combined technology and culture in a very original way. The app's functions include interactive maps of the cities, where the user can explore the Jewish heritage sites with access to a wide variety of content, including historical information, photos, videos, and audios. Users can also develop their route with the app in an interactive way, including unlocking content through award, generative photographic content, as well as discovering 3D objects, characteristics of the city's Jewish heritage in the form of augmented reality. This tool became one of the main elements that will remain in use after the project period has ended, and it will continue to serve to increase the visibility of the institutions that participated in the project regarding its cultural offer, as well as the digitalization of their content. Well, thanks so much again for the invitation, for attending to this presentation, and I'm sure that we'll be able to go deeper into the breakout rooms. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. Thanks back to you, Victor. And now let's jump directly to the next project. It's called The Link, and it provides elderly people and patients in hospitals or care facilities virtual access to museums and cultural institutions. The project itself is represented by Sönke Kirchhoff. He's a stereographer, a VR specialist, and a 3D producer, as well as the founder and managing director of Inverse Space GmbH. He is a member of the Fernseh- und Kinotechnische Gesellschaft, XR Bavaria MediaNet Berlin-Brandenburg and an elected board member of the Innovation Center for Immersive Imaging Technologies Berlin. So what else can I say? That I think we have a true specialist in the round for VR, and I'm really curious to hear more about the project.
Thanks for having me, and thanks for the nice introduction. I could add, perhaps, because that's much more relevant here, I forgot to put it into my portfolio and update it, that I'm a member of the board of the VR Association here in Berlin-Brandenburg as well, the VRBB. So everybody who is interested in collaborating and networking in that field is highly invited to join this network. But beside that, yes, I'm the managing director and CEO of InVR Space. We are doing a lot of VR content in all fields. I will try to share my screen here and give a little overview while speaking via our website. I hope you can see it. So we are coming from the field of content creation. That's basically our core business. But as you could perhaps see here in the project field, we are working with all kinds of festivals since more than a decade. For example, with the European Film Market, part of the Berlinale, with the RAM in Hamburg, with Stereopsia in Brussels. So all kinds of festivals, the British Film Institute, the London Film Festival, for example. So internationally with all kinds of festivals. And we have always been thinking about how to bring the medium of virtual reality to audiences that are not the classical core audiences that we understand, like gamers, for example, but to enthusiasts in the field of film, of entertainment in general, but especially those people who cannot afford a headset, or in the field of this project, this scope, to people who cannot go to specific places anymore and look at cultural content, for example. So in 2018, roundabout, we started talking to potential partners, mainly funny-wise at Stereopsia, the one festival in Brussels that I already mentioned, or conference, about how to bring virtual reality content to audiences, for example, in hospitals or elderly homes. So people who will not be able to go to special venues, like in this part of the program, of the project, to museums. And as we received a lot of interest from mainly French companies, and we have a good network in France for companies that do distribution on the one hand and content creation on the other hand, we decided to apply here with a project that brings museums into hospitals and elderly homes, while making sure that the museums don't have to be afraid that perhaps they lose ticket sales because of people are looking at the artworks in VR now and not going to the museums anymore. So this said, of course, we've been aware that it's not only about the museums themselves and how to capture a museum in an appealing way, but that we have, of course, the whole variety of an audience. Once again, we have children, we have elderly people, we have people who are interested in interactive content, but as well people who are more from a lean back audience perspective, who just want to get something told, who want to be guided through a museum, but don't interact with all the artworks, for example. So in a way, COVID, and we already had this topic in the very beginning of this call, I think, kicked in and did prove in a way very well that there is a need, and not only for elderly people, but for a lot of people who cannot go to museums anymore. And at the same time, museums recognize that there might be times where they cannot bring people to their museums in the way they are used to it, but bring the museums to specific venues or to the home. So what we did, and as I said, we had mainly partners in Paris, which lucky-wise led us to one of the consortium partners, which is the Paris Musée. Very important that we had museums in this consortium as well. And here we had a network of museums in Paris as part of the network, where we could create this content. And while talking to them, not only in the last 12 months, but mainly in the last 12 months, we recognized that the need for this kind of content, or the interest in creating this kind of content, got even more than before. As the time is short, I will just show a little clip, the 360 video, as one example that we created in the Petit Palais. We create more interactive content as well. As said, we are targeting all kinds of audiences here. But in this case, in a video conference, of course, video is easy to show and interactive content is not so easy to show. So here it's a petit palais. We have a little introduction text, of course, but we wanted to make it much more visual. I keep the sound as low as possible so I can speak much better above it. So we do like a classical walkthrough from the outside of the museum to the inside of the museum. I can swivel around a little bit. You get some extra informations that you can click, for example, and interact, more interactive versions. You get a little bit of information on where it's located. I'll go a little bit further in here because I think the basic function or the idea behind it should be clear now. We try to, perhaps this is one example, you can perhaps see how the image moves to the viewer a little bit. It's a stereoscopic video normally that you will see in the VR headset. So we try to not only capture the rooms as they are in a 360 video, but also to bring the artworks as close as possible to the viewers, to the audience, so they can get closer to the image as if they would be in reality in the museum. So to add some aspects to the content that you would normally not even be able to achieve. Nobody will stand in front of you, in front of an image or something like this. So yeah, I think that's basically it in a nutshell, and everything else I could elaborate perhaps to the consortium. We have the Paris Musée, we have 2 different companies based in Paris, and we have a sound company based in Belgium and Brussels as part of this consortium. And we are the lead in here, the only company based in Germany. Right.
Thank you, Sönke. Really, really interesting project. Let's now dive into the last, but for sure not least interesting project, Future Museum. It's a joint research project by Fraunhofer IAO and Museum Booster, aiming at assisting museums in applying cutting-edge know-how in their strategic planning, and also to create a network of museum leaders, public authorities, donors, and suppliers for the exchange of ideas and collaboration. For me, it's a huge pleasure to have both of you with us today. We are starting a big collaboration project between Museum Booster and Ars Electronica, also for the incubation of museums and their digital strategies. So it is absolutely exciting to have both of you here. Thanks so much for joining. The stage is yours.
Thank you very much, Veronica, also for inviting us, and thank you for this opportunity. Warm regards from Linz to Linz. We have just arrived from Vienna by train and happy to be here with you today. So I will quickly share my screen. Yep. Here we go. Hopefully you're able to see it. So pleasure to meet you. I'm Sofia, founder of Museum Booster. And I'm Olga, the head of research and development for the Museum Booster. And so what is Museum Booster? Our company is searching for solutions and new media technologies which bring impact for museums and which bring sustainable impact for museums. And for already 6 years, we have been doing a survey called Museum Innovation Barometer, where we survey various museums around the world and see what is the current status quo in terms of research of new media, how they implement new media technologies in their museums, what are the current trends, and where this whole story is developing. And what we have seen that actually there is little know-how still in this field, in the museum field, in terms of technology, and museums are trying to innovate, but sometimes they're doing it on their own, and on their own it is not really cost efficient and not really resource efficient. So we decided to launch a project called Future Museum. And as Veronica has mentioned, it is a research project which brings together 26 different project partners. Our main research partner is Fraunhofer IAO, and various institutions starting from famous and well-known like Siegerland Museum to small and not so famous like Guggenheim Bilbao, two science centers, art history museums are collaborating on searching for sustainable solutions in the field of technology and in the field of new media. So all these institutions have identified together with us research questions that are of relevance to all of them. And I will come back to later to the overview of what questions we have identified. It is worthwhile to mention that our project is self-funded. That means that every partner that you see here on board is paying a contribution depending on their size, and they are also having a certain expectations in terms of what kind of result is delivered afterwards. So Future Museum is a research project where our participants expect to get practical results out of it. And they also contribute with their know-how, experiences, in order also to get meaningful result out of it. So people behind the logos, it was December 2019, we gathered in Futurium in Berlin. It was our first research trip field where we got to know each other and also checked the location, which it was newly opened at that time, Futurium. And we looked behind the wheel of Futurium, how the museum works. And also every institution took some experiences for themselves, what could be improved in their institution in this regard. So this is our working atmosphere, except for making tours in different museums and checking what can be implemented for our participants. We're also having external lectures. Fraunhofer is presenting research results for the specific topics, and majority of our participants that are asking questions and actively participating are museum directors. So here, for instance, is Paul Frey, Managing Director of Kunsthistorisches Museum Jena. Gerfried Stocker, I guess you also know, Director of Ars Electronica. In the first row are normally Swiss guys sitting. And guess where is Guggenheim Bilbao? Close to the emergency exit. So coming back to what we're actually doing. We have identified three main topics of research: visitor experience, digitalization and management, and design and technology. And for every topic, there are subtopics and concrete research questions. So for instance, in the topic of visitor experience, we're looking on the question, how can museums reach new target markets? Or how to attract repeat and regular visitors? And for this question, we have been trying to look a little bit outside of the box and to see what actually visitors look for in a museum. And we would argue that the majority of the visitors are looking for the next artwork. But if we look on the older people or the younger people, then here the picture is a bit different. So we're trying to shake up our museum directors and explain to them that sometimes people might be looking for the next selfie opportunity. So maybe what Kunsthistorisches Museum needs is not only an excellent selection of artworks, but also a cool place where you can do a selfie and afterwards share it with your younger friends. Second topic, which is also extremely important for our partners, is digitalization and management. And as an example, at which stage of the visitor journey can visitor data be collected and used in a meaningful way? This is an extremely important question for all museums, since all of them have struggled to collect data of their visitors and to use it in order to provide meaningful experiences for specific target groups. And we have here a very nice example. If we see this for the people, what museums know about their visitors, and if we compare it with Facebook. what Facebook knows about the very same people. And the picture is a little bit scary. And we actually do not want to turn museums into Facebook, but we want to improve this yellow bubble a little bit in order that museums can also compete with Facebook, Netflix, and other providers of this world. Third topic is design and technology. And here, as an example, how should architecture and design of museums reflect shifting expectations by visitors? And our next meeting will happen at Guggenheim Bilbao, where we will tackle this question, and we will go through with the team of Guggenheim Bilbao to see how the expectations of people have changed since Guggenheim Bilbao was built, and what a modern museum needs, what types of spaces, and what can be changed in this regard. So, and we're actually today in Linz, and we just came back from Vienna by train, where yesterday this photo was taken, and we had a meeting at this is Hofburg, what you see at Weltmuseum, where we also tackled our research questions, brainstormed, and today we will visit Ars Electronica, and we're very much looking forward to it. So Olga, do you have something to add? Did I forget something to mention?
No, we're pretty much covered. Maybe one aspect that I would tap into is that of big importance for us is the collaborative endeavor, so that to find ways how museums could collaborate in a meaningful way, given that we understand that we inhabit the sector that doesn't have such a strong or sustainable financial muscle, and it is a challenge that we are all struggling with. So finding solutions that are efficient in multiple senses, yes, indeed economical, but also meaningful resource-wise and then ecology-wise, and looking at it from a number of perspectives. This is important to talk with the institutions, to check out their status quo, how they're thinking about it, to be creative, to create encounters between the creative techs, between the infrastructure providers, or those who are taking care and lobby for the interests of the museums, and those who are really at the driving wheel of the museums is really important for us. So that's basically the essence behind it. We work with museums, we work for museums, and this is what creates the spirit of a future museum. That is a flagship project of what Museum Booster does. But as Veronica has also mentioned, this is not the only project we're doing, and we're so excited also to have Ars Electronica on board and to be doing so many more magnificent things for museums in the future.
Thank you to both of you. We will definitely hear more about these projects within the next Ars Electronica edition in 2022. One project which actually comes from Ars Electronica and is its final project year is the European Artificial Intelligence Lab. It's a Creative Europe funded project. We are doing this together with 12 partners from all over the world, and we try to look into all the legal, cultural, ethical, educational, quite holistic dimensions of artificial intelligence. One of the outcomes of this project is an AI lab journey. So we try to commission artists to give us an insight into the work with AI technologies and researchers. And for this, I actually hand over to my colleague and the head of European projects at Ars Electronica, Christina Maurer.
Thank you very much, Veronica. So the journeys are a format that we developed last year as the pandemic somehow led us to not having our traditional artist-led guided tours during the Ars Electronica Festival. And so we were thinking about ways of how we could still have this feeling of a guided tour by an artist where they reflect on their practice in a new way as they were not able to come to us to Linz. So the journeys are basically wonderful filmic guided tours where the artists are sharing their modes of working, collaborative practice, and the big topics and challenges that they are working on. And besides the European Artificial Intelligence Lab, the journeys also crossed over to some projects like the European Media Arts Platform, which is funded also by Creative Europe, or the STARTS journeys, which were related to STARTS Prize and STARTS Initiative. So they, because of their success and because they gave such a wonderful impression through different lenses of different artists on topics such as AI, biotech, or data governance, this year we decided to produce another 10 journeys in the framework of the AI Lab. And I'm very, very excited about the journey that we are going to share with you today, that is called How to Strand Astronauts on the Moon. And for me, it's really one of the best practice examples where sound artist Halsey Bergand and filmmaker Francesca Panetta take us on a deep dive into their project in event of moon disaster. They produced this project with a very large group of collaborators, among them also the MIT Center for Advanced Virtuality, where Francesca is based partially. And in their work in event of moon disaster and in the journey we are going to see, they explore the deepfake AI technology that for them at the same time seems to have as big as a potential for storytelling and filmmaking and creative exploration as it has been mishandled and being used to spread dis and misinformation and fake news. And why I think that they are really a wonderful example is because they really managed to break down this super complex topic into a very approachable and understandable and engaging format. So I don't want to go too much into the content of the journey, but let you experience for yourselves how Halsey and Francesca got Richard Nixon to deliver a speech on TV that never happened actually in real life. So let's take a look at the journey now.
In a world where people wrote things on typewriters and no one had ever landed on the moon, a lone speechwriter was given the task of drafting a speech for President Richard Nixon that would hopefully never be delivered.
Good evening, my fellow Americans. Fate has ordained that the men who went to the moon to explore in peace will stay on the moon to rest in peace.
The speech would be presented to a global audience only if tragedy struck and the Apollo 11 astronauts, Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin, were stranded on the moon. It was never used and remained in dusty archives until two artists found out about it and decided to bring it to life.
It was the 50th anniversary of the moon landing, and we were sitting around, a group of us who brainstormed regularly.
We've been thinking a lot about misinformation and how new technologies, in particular deepfakes, were starting to become more and more prevalent.
And we thought, there is this speech that we knew of, written by Bill Sapphire for Nixon.
We thought, amazing speech that was never delivered, plus deepfake technology equals boom.
It was just like, yeah, bingo, that's a good idea.
But hold on, aren't deepfakes bad?
Deepfakes have got the potential to be dangerous, like all types of misinformation.
So we tried to walk this fine balance between making our piece as believable as possible to induce an emotional reaction in our audience, but then to quickly say, this isn't real, here's how we did it, and watch out for other situations where you might encounter this kind of misinformation.
The majority of people acknowledge that the moon landing happens.
That's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
So by us creating a deep fake, we wouldn't be causing some kind of misinformation.
I love the moon, you love the moon, everybody loves the moon. What could go wrong?
But Fran and Halsey weren't technical experts, and they didn't even understand how deepfakes worked.
We like, as artists and directors and journalists, to work with technology, but I'm certainly never the one who's coding.
We're not experienced with things like artificial intelligence, machine learning, or really any form of synthetic media, so we needed some help.
And the best people that we found in the game at the time were Canny AI, who was doing video dialogue replacement, and Respeecher, who were making synthetic voices.
They got down to work with the help of smart people and smart machines from these two companies.
We wanted to make what we call a complete deep fake, which means not only creating a video of somebody saying something they never said, but also creating a synthetic voice that sounds exactly like the person we are targeting, in this case, President Nixon.
To make a deep fake, first they needed a target video.
This video is what Canny would manipulate by changing only the mouth motions. Everything else would remain totally authentic.
We downloaded loads and loads of Nixon speeches from the White House. It seemed that the resignation speech had the right kind of body language, the right kind of emotion in the eyes.
To leave office before my term is completed is abhorrent to every instinct in my body.
We then needed an actor who was going to read the contingency speech.
Good evening, my fellow Americans.
An AI model was trained to understand human faces. Now that the AI could understand faces, it was able to map the actor's facial motion onto Nixon's.
Fate has ordained that the men who went to the moon to explore in peace will stay on the moon to rest in peace.
So watch the hands here.
Yeah, the hands.
That's creepy.
When we got the first video back from Canny, which was a video of President Nixon delivering the speech, albeit in the actor's voice, we knew at that moment that this was really going to work.
They also wanted a synthetic version of Nixon's voice, which meant they would need to create an audio AI model as well.
Making Nixon's voice was way more complicated.
We decided to use speech-to-speech technology rather than text-to-speech technology because that enabled us to use an actor to create a performance of the speech, which would be translated into Nixon's voice.
Again, they had to feed the model loads and loads of data. The actor recorded hundreds of short clips from Nixon's Vietnam speeches.
In a sense, the AI learns like people do. It is exposed to lots of examples. If this is the input, then this is the output. And then with those examples, it learns how to take any input and translate that into a corresponding output.
I get the idea now. I sure messed up my test paper.
So you need Nixon saying one thing,
and then our actor saying the same exact thing, and we do this hundreds and hundreds of times.
And do what I believe is right. And do what I believe is right.
And do what I believe is right.
Except the first defeat.
Except the first defeat.
I have noted, for example, that a Republican senator.
I have noted, for example, that a Republican senator.
So then once we'd got all of that done, it gets sent into the deep learning black box.
And then magically, our AI learns to convert anything our actor says into the same thing in the form of synthetic Nixon. So we had a video of Nixon mouthing the words of the speech, and we had a synthetic version of the speech itself. All we had to do was put it together to form our complete deepfake.
For every human being who looks up at the moon in the nights to come will know that there is some corner of another world that is forever mankind.
But the film isn't entirely a deep fake. How did they make the lunar lander appear to crash?
So we really only wanted to use actual archival footage from the Apollo 11 mission, even though we wanted to tell a totally different alternative history. This is where we used a whole bunch of cheap fakes.
We manipulated the archive film to crash the Eagle onto the moon.
The lunar lander was actually returning to the orbiter, not crashing.
We listened meticulously to loads of audio from the control room to try and find any kind of anxiety on anyone's voices. So we found this one area, okay, let's repeat that and let's repeat all the beeps, and then what we'll do is we'll cut really, really fast between lots and lots of visuals.
Cheap fakes are tried and true techniques for generating this information. You can change the speed of the video, you can do selective editing, you can reverse things, you can repeat things. These are all very standard techniques that have been used for as long as film has existed, and that's what we did here.
Although deepfakes are a problem in terms of misinformation, cheap fakes are actually more problematic. More people have got their hands on the tools of being able to manipulate video and audio to deceive people.
But did the deep fake convince people?
The first iteration of this piece was like as a physical installation. We were working with it for the documentary festival in Amsterdam, and we'd got inspiration from the 1960s watch parties that would happen for big events.
It was really fun to watch the reactions of people as they tried to figure out what the heck was going on. Is this really President Nixon? Did he say that? Hold it, the moon landing happened, right?
Oh, I never knew that Nixon actually recorded this contingency speech just in case.
It was a challenge for us to strike the right balance between using synthetic media convincingly enough to make people realize its power, but not so convincingly that they didn't understand it was fake.
We launched our website and also launched it on YouTube as well.
Oh man, we got some great comments on YouTube and on Reddit too. There was an amazing thread going there, and people keep on leaving YouTube comments. Lots of opinions.
Is synthetic media all doom and gloom? Or can it be used positively?
It's like they say, you can use a hammer to bonk someone on the head, or you can use it to build a house. Synthetic media is kind of the same.
We definitely do need to find a way to combat deepfakes and to educate people around them. But there are ways that AI and synthetic media, I really hope and think, can be used in really creative ways.
It's critical that we all do whatever we can to inoculate ourselves against the bad actors out there who will inevitably use it for nefarious purposes.
So remember, kids, what you see and hear might not be what is real. Even I am not what you think. I am completely synthesized.
Thanks to ReSpeecher.
Good night.